The other, I don't know if we can call him a blue blood anymore, but the other kind of
I know where you're going with this.
Major powerhouse, huge fan base, huge program, historically successful program, Indiana. Yeah. They landed you could make the argument was the most talented player in the transfer portal this year. I don't think that's crazy to say. Kel'el Ware, former top 10 recruit, 7-footer, got a little bit of range, got a little bit of handle, got a little bit of perimeter skill. Yeah. Doesn't have the motor. He's coming in to be more or less the Trace Jackson Davis replacement. What does he mean for Mike Woodson, and what does he mean for this Indiana program?
I mean, listen, again, the funny thing is that's what they said about Trace a few years ago, right? He didn't have the motor. He didn't play hard. They're different. Obviously, Kel'el Ware is a guy that was high on draft boards coming out of high school because of his potential, right? Super long. He's 7 feet. He runs the court exceptionally well. Thin, athletic, skilled to some degree. I mean, I remember seeing him down in, I forget where I was, somewhere in Georgia. And I was like, all right, he's going to be a guy who needs a year of development. And he went to Dana Altman, who's one of the best developmental coaches in the college game, and didn't do much because he wasn't ready. And Dana Altman didn't have guards early because they were all hurt last year. But Kel'el Ware was not ready to honestly make an impact physically and somewhat emotionally. He needed a year to develop. And you almost wish the old rule was in place for a kid like Ware right now, where he'd have to sit out the year. Because I think, honestly, he would benefit from that more than most players. Some players don't need that, obviously. You know, you look at Max Asmus or Hunter Dickinson. But I think Ware would really benefit from a year of sitting out. Well, he's not going to. He's going to play right away for Indiana. And, you know, the one thing I worry about is, can he stretch it? Can he make shots consistently from three? He didn't show that last year at all. And Malik Renew, the other guy up front for Indiana, is also in a similar boat. He hasn't shown yet that he can make shots from the perimeter. He can stretch it more than Trace or Race did, I think, and shoot it from 12 to 15, maybe to 18. But those two, how are they going to coexist together, Rob? And are they similar? A little different, but are they similar to Trace and Race last year, where honestly, in today's game, they don't really work? You can rack up a lot of wins in the Big Ten. We've talked about this with you know, guys that aren't skilled enough to step out and shoot it. But when you get to the NCAA tournament, it doesn't work.
Yeah. I think he's got to be able to shoot it. And I think that you're kind of betting on the fact that jumper is better than the 27% that he shot from three, right? I think the big thing is going to be, will teams look at the success that UConn had with Klingon and Sonogo and rotating them, or the success that Purdue had with Trevion Williams and Zach Edey and rotating them? And will they be able to kind of convince Renew and Kel'el Ware that that's the way that they need to play? And I don't know if that's necessarily the answer. And look, if Kel'el Ware comes out here and is knocking down threes and becomes this switchable 5-man that can also be a rim protector, then it's not going to matter because they can just play them together. But that's going to be the really interesting thing, I think, moving forward. And frankly, a lot of that also depends on who Indiana ends up bringing back, right? And who they end up who else they end up.
They're waiting to hear. They're waiting to hear on the Xavier Johnson, obviously. Yes.
That's kind of what I was getting.
The waiver. Yeah. Yep. And you know, if they have Xavier Johnson back, and he really shot it well when he was healthy the last half of his 2 years ago. You know, they got added shooting. They got added shooting. We know that. Everybody's got added shooting. And honestly, if you don't have shooting, I don't know how you can go. I mean, I guess San Diego State did it this year without shooting, without a lot of it. So I guess you can go far, but it's a lot more difficult. You got
to have a bunch of 25-year-olds that are going to play rugby if you want to be able to do it. Yeah. You have to be the honest truth is you have to be absolutely utterly elite on the defensive end.
And old, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Old. So that's kind of where I stand with Indiana. Do you think, gun to your head, do you think that this is going to be a team that can compete for a Big Ten title next season?
No, I don't.
No?
I don't. I mean, I just see Michigan State and Purdue. As of today, I like Michigan State with Tyson Walker coming back. And
Let's get into that. How big is that for Michigan State getting him back?
Huge. Tyson Walker was one of the best guards in the country this past year. He went from one of the worst 2 years ago. And I remember, again, Izzo, I'm walking to the bus. I forget where it was. It might have been at Illinois. And he was just like, he was so frustrated because he's like, Tyson's going to be so good. I wish he had the year to sit and learn the system with us. And then he had the year, and he was so good this past year. Aikens healthy, probably next year. Hogard back. So they've got their perimeter trio back. They probably lose Hauser. But Kohler will have a year under his belt. Sissoko's back. They bring in a talented freshman that I don't know how much we're going to see him, to be honest. Because, again, he's somebody who's far away. He's a little bit like Ware. You know, he's a little bit like Ware in that he needs a year to honestly be able to kind of acclimate himself both physically and emotionally. But he's somebody that Xavier Booker, who I just saw at the McDonald's game, talented, just needs a year. So they might not need a ton from him this year. Now,
if you can bring him in and have him be your impact 10 to 12 minute guy, or 10 to 12 minute a game guy off the bench early on, and let him kind of develop into that 20 to 25 minutes per game guy and make him earn that starting spot at the 5, I think that's the best case scenario for a freshman like Xavier. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like again, give him 10, 12, 15 minutes. Let him get his ass kicked a little bit in practice by the older guys, and then
he will at Michigan State. You know that's going to happen,
right? That's what I'm saying. Like, just Xavier Booker, go at your own timeline here. Like, don't force it. Look at somebody like Ware, and I think it's going to help. Because if Ware had come out this year, he still would have been drafted probably in the first round. But honestly, he would have gotten killed. He would have been in the G League all year.
Look, I think Ware, Filipowski to a point, Mark Mitchell to a point, Tyrese Proctor, like a lot of these guys are able to make the decision where they say that this is where I think NIL is having the biggest impact, right?
Yes.
You can come back and you can make X amount of dollars where you don't have to, it makes going, here's the best way to phrase it. If you go pro now and you end up being a second round pick, a top 40 pick, you're going to get a guaranteed deal. But what that guaranteed deal is going to end up being is like, I think it's like $900,000 the first year, and then the second year is partially guaranteed. So so you get like a 2-year deal. First year is guaranteed money. So you're going to get a guaranteed like $1 million or something like that. But after that, you're going to have to go earn some contracts. That's not that much more than what a lot of these guys can get NIL wise if they decide to come back, especially if you're at a brand like an Indiana or a Duke or a North Carolina or something like that. And now, instead of having to earn your next contract playing in the NBA, you can go and prove it as a college player. And then when you come out, all of a sudden you're looking at like, okay, I could be a lottery pick, which means I'm going to end up getting $7 million a year guaranteed for 4 years. Like that's where the value is for NILs. You can get these guys to come back that are trying to go from being early second round picks that will get some guaranteed money to being lottery picks that are going to get like life altering guaranteed money. Does that make sense? Like that's where the impact is.
Yeah, listen, again, we've talked about it with the bigs because the bigs aren't going to the league anyway. But a Filipowski is a great example. My guess is Cal Filipowski will get paid handsomely this year through NIL.
Yes,
a lot of money because again, like he's looking at it. He could certainly, at worst case scenario, and he's not even a 2-way. I mean, he's going to get paid. So you've got to make it worth his while to come back, and Duke can do that. There's certain programs that can obviously do that. So I think it helps any of those guys that are on the fringe right now.
Yep, exactly. I agree.